That is, that this population in Russia is enraged, furious, much more enraged and furious than people in the West understand. They are literally publicly calling for President Putin to march west and essentially cross the river, smash whatever is in Ukraine, and regain complete control of it, which frankly is something that President Putin doesn't want to do. He never has. He was ever only interested in the Russians who were living inside Ukraine and ensuring that they would not be brutalized or mistreated. Unfortunately, we have a situation now where the population says that's obviously not enough. We'll have no peace, there will be no sleep at night as long as Western Ukraine remains a permanent source of conflict and hostility to Russia. Back to the KK battlefield, where Ukraine's relentless assaults on Kovka have turned the V into a flashpoint in this conflict. As Colonel Douglas Macgregor has noted, every strategic decision here could shift the balance. Drone footage captures the devastation, burning tanks, smoke-filled skies, highlighting the immense toll on both sides. The question remains, how long can Ukraine sustain this intensity? And will their efforts break through Russian defenses or crumble under pressure? The stakes have never been higher, with each side pushing to the limit. Kino is no ordinary target for Ukraine. It is the key to unlocking the larger strategic puzzle in this region. As Colonel Douglas Macgregor pointed out, the control of Kyiv could shift the momentum significantly in Ukraine's favor. But the challenges they face are enormous. Controlling this village would grant Ukraine a critical advantage, securing vital supply routes and river crossings that could pave the way for a larger offensive deeper into Russian-held territory. Positioned at a crossroads, Koro has become a symbol of both sides' determination to gain the upper hand. If Ukraine succeeds here, they could significantly shift the momentum of the war. But this isn't just a matter of brute force. The challenges Ukraine faces in capturing Kyiv are as much about terrain and logistics as they are about firepower. This region's natural defenses, including the river that winds through it, make every inch of ground contested. Russian forces, well aware of Kyiv's strategic importance, have fortified their positions, constructing trench networks and artillery emplacements that make any Ukrainian advance costly and difficult. Ukraine's approach to this battle has been relentless, pushing hard against these defenses in a bid to break through and establish a foothold. Yet, the clock is ticking. Every day spent battling over Kyiv gives Russia more time to reinforce its defenses and counter Ukraine's moves. The longer this struggle drags on, the greater the toll on both sides. The Ukrainian forces are under immense pressure to achieve their objectives quickly, before their own supply lines and manpower become too depleted to continue. As the fight for Kyiv intensifies, on the ground, a quieter but no less significant battle is playing out behind enemy lines, a fight shrouded in mystery and deception. While the battle for Kyiv captures the headlines, another war rages in the shadows. Ukraine has claimed significant advances deep into Russian-held territory, particularly in the region near Kachuk, where sabotage and infiltration have become key tactics. According to Ukrainian reports, their forces have disrupted key Russian supply lines, penetrated fortified positions, and created chaos behind enemy lines. However, the reality on the ground is far more complex. Intelligence suggests that many of these Ukrainian operations have been overstated, with only limited success achieved in these deep penetration raids. Russian special forces, notably the elite Aket unit, have launched counter-raids, hunting down Ukrainian infiltration teams with precision and ruthlessness. These raids, initially hailed as major victories for Ukraine, have since faltered. Instead of a decisive disruption, what we see now is a series of isolated skirmishes. Small groups of Ukrainian soldiers engaging in hit-and-run tactics while Russian forces systematically cut off their escape routes. This aspect of the war is not just physical, it is a battle of perception. Ukraine's high-risk operations behind enemy lines are meant to bolster morale and project strength, yet their actual impact remains questionable. The loss of entire units trapped and overwhelmed by Russian counterattacks reveals the precariousness of these deep incursions. Ukraine's ambitions in the shadow war are increasingly coming up against the harsh realities of Russian counterintelligence and superior positioning. As Ukraine's covert operations encounter growing resistance, the front lines remain just as bloody on the main stage. Russia is proving that it's far from on the back foot in the thick of this conflict. Russia is showing its resilience and adaptability. While Ukraine's offenses have been fierce, Russian forces have demonstrated that they are not easily overwhelmed. In areas like Kreno, what initially appeared to be a Ukrainian attempt to insert Russian units quickly shifted into a counteroffensive that turned the tide. Russian troops, leveraging their familiarity with the terrain and superior artillery capabilities, have not only repelled Ukrainian advances but inflicted significant casualties in the process. The situation in Krano is no different. Here, Russian forces have capitalized on Ukraine's failed offensives, using their well-positioned artillery and air power to decimate Ukrainian positions. After a brief breakthrough at the southern gate, Ukrainian forces found themselves trapped in a deadly crossfire. Russian units provided real-time intelligence, guiding artillery strikes with deadly accuracy. Ukrainian units were forced to retreat under heavy fire, leaving behind destroyed vehicles and countless casualties. This back-and-forth struggle is emblematic of the larger conflict, where every move is met with an equally forceful counterpunch. Russia's ability to mount effective counteroffensives, even in the face of sustained Ukrainian pressure, highlights the depth of their defensive strategy. Ukraine's high-stakes attacks are becoming increasingly costly, with little to show for their efforts but mounting losses. But even as the battle shifts, Ukraine presses forward in other areas of the Kyrgyz front, where the stakes continue to rise. Despite the immense cost, Ukraine has made some tangible progress in the Kyrgyz region. As Colonel Douglas Macgregor noted, Ukraine's determination to capture key positions like Anova Snag and Vishva has been unwavering, even as the human toll continues to climb. Over the past several days, Ukrainian forces have successfully captured these key villages, securing positions that are critical for their larger strategy. These victories, while hard-fought, represent important steps toward securing larger objectives in the region. Yet, with every victory comes a heavy price. Ukrainian forces have endured intense fighting, and the toll on both sides has been severe. The spotlight now shifts to the villages of Kunuk, Brisko, and Korova, two pivotal positions that will determine the next phase of this campaign. These villages are critical for Ukraine's ability to establish a secure foothold along the river, which would allow them to push deeper into Russian-held territory. But the fight for these positions is brutal. Russian defenses are deeply entrenched, and every inch of ground is contested. The battle here has seen some of the fiercest fighting yet, with artillery bombardments, close-quarter combat, and relentless airstrikes. For Ukraine, capturing these villages is more than just a tactical victory. It's a symbolic triumph that could shift the momentum of the entire war. But the cost has been staggering. Both sides have suffered heavy casualties, and the ground gained is measured in blood. The question now is whether Ukraine can sustain this level of intensity long enough to make these gains meaningful, or if the grinding attrition will force them to pull back and reassess their strategy. As the fighting rages on, the true cost of this conflict becomes ever clear. The casualty reports from the battlefield tell a grim tale of loss and devastation. The casualty figures coming out of Kyrgyz paint a bleak picture of the toll this war has taken. In just the past 24 hours, Ukraine has suffered staggering losses. According to Russian reports, over 2,360 Ukrainian soldiers were killed or wounded in a single day, a record-breaking figure that surpasses even the heaviest casualties from previous days of fighting. These numbers are not just statistics, they are a testament to the grinding nature of this conflict. The term Kyrgyz curse has become a grim reality for Ukrainian forces. Their attempts to break through Russian lines have been met with fierce resistance, and the cost in lives and equipment continues to mount. Every failed offensive drains Ukraine's ability to sustain its war effort. Russian forces, meanwhile, continue to exploit their air superiority, launching precision strikes from K-52 helicopters and Su-34 fighter jets. These airstrikes, often targeting critical Ukrainian positions deep behind the front lines, have inflicted devastating damage, leaving Ukrainian units vulnerable and exposed. The scale of destruction is overwhelming. Entire battalions have been wiped out, and the psychological toll on Ukrainian forces is growing. Reports suggest that morale among the troops is beginning to fray, as the relentless attrition shows no signs of abating. For Ukraine, the challenge is not just in winning the battle, it's in surviving the grind of this war of attrition. With every passing day, the losses mount, and the prospects for a quick resolution grow dimmer. As Colonel Douglas Macgregor has frequently stated, the Kyrgyz battlefield could very well determine the outcome of this broader conflict. As the days turn into weeks, the Kyrgyz front remains one of the most critical and fiercely contested areas of this war. Both sides have invested heavily in these battles, but the cost has been immense. For Ukraine, the challenges are mounting, with each failed offensive bringing with it higher casualties and dwindling resources. Yet they continue to push forward, driven by the hope that they can turn the tide. Russia, meanwhile, has shown remarkable resilience, leveraging its defensive positions and superior firepower to inflict heavy losses on Ukrainian forces. But they too face challenges. Sustaining these operations requires significant resources and manpower, and the strain is beginning to show. The question now is not just who will win the next battle, but how much longer can this conflict continue before one side is forced to concede? Can Ukraine find a way to break the Kursk curse and turn the momentum in their favor, or will the relentless attrition of this war grind them down before they can achieve their objectives? One thing is certain, the Kursk battlefield will continue to be a pivotal front in this war, and the outcome of the battles here will shape the future of the entire conflict. Stay with us as we continue to bring you the latest updates from the front lines, where every battle could be the turning point in this brutal and unforgiving war. This war is far from over and the road ahead remains uncertain. Let me make a 10-minute video on this topic.